The costs associated to obesity in our nation are absolutely staggering. How many times have I said to you, hey, this is like the Roman Empire. Cakes and circuses. Entertain us, feed us, we'll shut up and let you go out there and ruin the republic. And you start to look at some of the numbers around obesity, and that's what's happening. And I know people bang on Michelle Obama for saying, oh, we've got to change this, and the government's got to do this with how kids eat. Let's not even give her a reason to open her mouth. That's what I would prefer. I prefer we get to the point where we don't even give her a reason to open her mouth about this obesity situation. But the costs are staggering. Again, with me today, Dr. Spencer Berg. Dr. Berg, good morning. Happy Cyber Monday. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving. Let's jump right into the costs about what's happening here with the obesity problem. Let's talk about adults first. The latest numbers I read, in the United States alone, we're spending $270 billion a year on this problem.
Yes, good morning, Chris. It's great to be here. In fact, $270 billion, that's roughly the latest that we found from 2010, 2011 numbers. That includes both direct and indirect costs. The direct costs obviously being those that we spend as a society for both the diagnosis, the prevention, the treatment of diseases. There's a lot of indirect costs that are related to increased amount of decreased productivity and an increased amount of sick days, as well as lack of productivity at work and more early mortality, which actually takes away from folks' earning power long term. So yeah, it's been estimated to be around 270 billion. But any way you look at it, the numbers don't lie. The table doesn't lie in this respect that we're seeing obesity become, it is currently the number 2 preventable cause of death and disease in the United States, second only to tobacco.
And only because we continue just to stuff ourselves with food that we shouldn't be stuffing. And one of the things last night, I don't know if you watched 60 Minutes last night, but they had a really interesting piece about there's scientists out there that will put certain things in the foods to make them smell better and really, play to our emotions, if you will, play to our senses, that almost kind of make it somewhat addictive with some of these foods that obviously aren't good for us. And again, this is about personal responsibility, but when you know that the marketing and the money behind food purchasing, it can get a little bit out of whack. Again, Dr. Spencer Berg with us in studio, FargoMedicalWeightLoss.com, FargoMedicalWeightLoss.com. Go ahead, Dr. Berg.
Well, I was just going to say the personal responsibility aspect is big. However, there comes a point, and this is the interesting the thing that we're learning. The more research that we put into and look at as it relates to overweight and obesity, we're finding out what changes, what happens with the body as we put on weight that makes it more difficult for us to lose that weight. And so that these are the things that as a society it happens, but for each individual this is unique. We look at things that are occurring biochemically and metabolically within the body so that as someone is putting on weight and storing more fat, it makes it more difficult for them to lose weight. And in fact, they may take in the same number of calories as they were before, but continue to gain weight at a higher degree. It has to do with insulin resistance and some of the other changes that are occurring. And so if in fact individuals can be helped so that they can start and reverse the process and help bring this down to where they're on a good, shall we say, on a good decline of their weight. As they get down under a certain weight, then they're able to continue that weight reduction. And again, a lot of the things that drive hunger and that drive eating behavior are made worse as we gain weight and as we put on body fat. But as we decrease that body fat, then those drives, a lot of those chemicals, if you will, that are within the body that drive hunger and drive our appetite, drive our eating functions, those decrease and make it more simple, make it easier for us to lose weight. And this is something that we're finding that individually is important, and that's what we do out at the clinic, is work with patients individually, look at their own healthcare situation, and deal with that, and help them get on that right path. Many times folks think they're on a course that they just can't seem to get a hold of. As we work on that, and they see that what they're doing now becomes effective, and they see this move the right direction, it has really a big effect in which they gain confidence and things go. Now, we've been doing this long enough here locally now to see dramatic results in many individuals here in our area. We've known this from studies of this type of approach over the past 10 years in certain locations nationally, but now we're seeing them right here in the Fargo area, and it's really exciting.
Well, I heard a story recently. A friend of mine that went to your clinic lost 22 pounds in 2 weeks. I mean, that's incredible.
Well, yeah, it's again, there's no smoke and mirrors, there's no magic bullet, but there is a proper way to feed the machine, and that's the way I like to phrase that. Is that we're working with individuals to learn how to feed their machine, not only now, but going forward. This is an ongoing process, not something of a quote diet per se. This is something. Your diet is your daily intake of calories and nutrition. For me, I've been on one for 54 years, and so we have to look at this as, how am I feeding the machine each day so I can get maximum performance out of it, both today and on into the future.
I love that analogy there. I want to get to your phone calls here in just a moment. A couple of things to note is that obese people are spending personally $1,500 more a year on health care. So just the fiscal part of it is one thing, but also you start to drop the weight, you have more energy, more vitality, which obviously is going to enhance your productivity at work, allow you to possibly make even more money, plus increase, I would say, have a great opportunity to improve relationships with people just because you're more present, you have more energy to be involved in those relationships. Number to call in locally, 271-1100, 271-1100. Gabe, welcome to the Chris Berg Show.
Hey, Dr. Berg. Just want to get your thoughts on this real quick. When I look at a lot of things of what we're eating within society, if you look at a lot of pictures of people coming back about, back in the 1940s and 50s, most Americans were fairly thin, fairly, to use the term, svelte-looking. Wouldn't you say that a lot of that has to do with what kind of foods we're eating, the over-processing of foods, and a lot of non-natural food items that we're imbibing?
Yes, absolutely. And thanks for the call. The foods that we're taking in, foods and drink, for that matter, have changed dramatically, and the processing has increased, and the dramatic increase in the real calorie-dense, high fructose corn syrup, the very sweetened and very refined sugars, those products absolutely have made it very difficult and have certainly added, if you look at the mid-'70s on when we introduced high fructose corn syrup to the diet, because it was a very cheap way to make things very sweet. Many of the manufacturers went over to this, and if you look on your food labels, you'll see it in a lot of items. And in fact, it'd be a good idea if you just look at the label. If it's got high fructose corn syrup, don't buy it, because you can find other things in that, like say jellies. There are jellies and jams and preserves, some of them that have it, some that don't. And if you stay away from high fructose corn syrup, you'll help yourself out a lot. But also, again, the sweetened juices that we see. You're better off eating an orange than drinking orange juice. You're better off with, say, bananas, as a whole. Now, granted, we have to look at the sugar base of all of these because carbohydrates are what drive the storing of fat. It is the excess in carbohydrate that we take in. We store them as fat. So, therefore, if you're eating a high carbohydrate diet, you're eating a high fat diet.
So give us some tips, and I want to talk about a couple of things here. Again, Dr. Spencer Berry in studio with me here on the Chris Berg Show on the We the People Network, 1016 on this Cyber Monday morning. If you want to find out more or even make a phone call to get a free body composition analysis, go to FargoMedicalWeightLoss.com. Again, FargoMedicalWeightLoss.com. I think it was in the forum yesterday, Dr. Berry, where they talked about all the breads that are at some of the local restaurants. Did you see that?
Yes, well, I mean, this is something that's been ongoing, and of course the breads and the pastas, which again we like, and certainly they're abundant. And when we receive them, we generally receive them in much larger than what would be considered one serving. Good tip at restaurants, of course, is to if in fact the bread is brought out and you'd like a piece, that's fine, but take a piece out of the bread bowl and then ask the waiter to take it back to the kitchen. If it's sitting out there on the table in front of you, you'll tend to just keep reaching in and grabbing one more, because generally you're there and you're hungry, getting ready to eat.
It's like chips,
and that's the first thing that shows up. And so while your appetite is turned on, you'll end up eating more bread than you would have.
So why don't restaurants put out like celery and things that are going to be more nutritious? Because then it ends up satiating you, and they make less money on the actual entrees, or what?
No, I mean that question, Chris, answers itself. I mean, because the folks don't want celery and carrots when they sit down to eat, and it's something that we're programmed. And if they serve celery and carrots, you'd quit going to that restaurant, and they wouldn't be around. And so you have to understand it's driven by what we as a consumer are looking for, and so that's why educating the consumers as to what to ask for and what to look for is really the important thing, because that's what's going to drive then the behavior of those restaurants is those personal individuals.
That's what I want to get to. Again, Dr. Spencer Berry, FargoMedicalWeightLoss.com, talking about getting you more health and vitality back into your life, personal responsibility. We're coming into the holidays. It's post-Thanksgiving. There's going to be all kinds of holiday parties coming up. What are some tips you can give people saying, you know what, don't do this to make sure you don't overstuff yourself and gain a bunch of extra weight over the holiday season?
Yeah, with a lot of the holiday activities going on, again, many good ideas. Some of them people have heard before. It's always good to go over them again, and that is prior to heading out to a gathering, sometimes making sure you eat about an hour before. Have something to eat about an hour before, preferably higher in protein. That's very satisfying to the appetite, and if you do that, then as you arrive at the party or the gathering that you're at, you're much less likely to go after, say, the higher caloric, less nutritional items that may be there, and then you'll let your choices be better as you take a look at what's there, and you'll kind of stay away from, say, as you mentioned, chips, some of the things that are, and again, obviously a lot of sweets around in the holidays, and you have to remember life's a consumer event, and we're going to enjoy some of that. There are feast days and holidays. That's important, but again, it's not usually the holiday that gets us in trouble. It's when we let it become a holla week or a holla month.
Well said. Dr. Spencer Berry, FargoMedicalWeightLoss.com. Last question for you. Breakfast is said to be the most important meal for anybody for years and years and years. What's a good breakfast? If people want to kick off their day right, what should they be eating first thing in the morning?
First thing in the morning, protein. You want to make sure... Again, they used to eat steak and eggs a lot. That used to be a lot more common.
Does that go back to sort of what Gabe was saying about the 30s, 40s, and 50s?
Yes, yeah, a bit. And certainly what's happened is a fellow by the name of Ansel Keys had a hypothesis about fat and things, and therefore a high-fat diet being bad. And it made a lot of sense to people. But the reality is there's never been a research study that has shown that a high-fat diet contributes to heart disease. And in fact, quite the opposite. As folks, when they look at numbers and derive them, individuals that are having, again, more protein, a little bit of fat, and staying away from those concentrated sugars, they do better. It's more satisfying, it's more satiating. And then as you do that and get into the habit of that, and breakfast is an important time to do just that, then you'll find that come 10 a.m., 10:30, you're not looking around the break room for some snack that somebody may have brought in. If you start that sugar insulin roller coaster in the morning, one will chase the other all day.
So like coffee and cereal, stay away from that. But if I sit down with maybe some eggs and a piece of ham and a piece of toast, am I okay? Or am I
minus the toast? You're okay.
Really? Not even a piece of toast?
And you're best leaving bread has sugar. And again, that's better later in the day. That's better later in the day. That's fine. I'm not saying it's bad. Just as bananas, oranges, those are all better or good for you in the right amounts. But again, early in the morning to break your fast with carbohydrates and sugar, that starts it going. And again, coffee's fine. You can even put a little half and half or artificial sweetener in it if you like. There's no absorbed carbohydrate in that, and you don't start that. As I said, that insulin. Sugar insulin roller coaster, which is what leads. It's those peaks of insulin that drive the hunger, and of course it drives it for more carbohydrates, more sugar, and that's why you get hungry, start looking around for a snack.
Dr. Spencer Berry, FargoMedicalWeightLoss.com. 1021 here on the Chris Berg Show on the We the People Network. TB had a quick question for you, Doctor, about vitamins. Any suggestions around vitamins, one a day, or anything like that?
Absolutely. One a day and or Centrum or the generic equivalent thereof, okay? Generic equivalents tend to be about half the cost, and a good one-a-day vitamin has been, again, the studies have shown over and over that, yes, that is effective. You don't need more than that. In terms of the trace elements in vitamins, which make up what we call the micronutrients, but we do recommend increased vitamin D. In our part of the country here, we don't make vitamin D for about 9 months of the year. And then the 3 months that the sun is out and high enough, we're usually putting sunblock on. So that vitamin D that we make in the skin, we tend not to have. So 2,000 international units of vitamin D on a daily basis not only helps out with bone health for women, but very important in our metabolism as it relates to our general health with nutrition.
And so is vitamin D something I should take with my protein in the morning? Or
Vitamin D, sure.
All right,
vitamin
okay.
D and a multivitamin, and then, again, there's other... Again, it depends on each individual. We look at other specifics, but no, a good generic multivitamin is an excellent and will cover the needs of the individual.
Dr. Spencer Berry, again, you can get a free body composition analysis. All you have to do is go to FargoMedicalWeightLoss.com. Again, FargoMedicalWeightLoss.com. Dr. Berry, always great to have you in studio. We'll talk to you again in a couple weeks, okay?
Thanks so much.